No, he's doing the right thing, thank you. And yet they make 75% of their profits from the American customers, so it's something. That's why I signed an executive order combating this practice, and we signed it very happily a little while ago. Today, Pfizer is committing, as will other drug companies as we go through the weeks, but Pfizer is truly one of the biggest in the world and one of the greatest in the world. Today, Pfizer is committing to offer all of their prescription medications to Medicaid, and it will be at the most favored nation's prices. It's going to have a huge impact on bringing Medicaid costs down like nothing else. I told you that in my first term, I was so proud of the fact that for the first time in 28 years, drug prices came down. And I had a news conference that I explained it was 0.1%, but it was down. And here we're talking about, in one case, over 1,000%. This is a critical step forward to our work and to improve health care, and hardworking, low-income Americans, especially low-income Americans, will be helped so greatly. In addition, Pfizer is agreeing to provide some of their most popular current medications to all consumers at heavily discounted prices of anywhere between 50 and even 100%, and that's off the price. And in some cases, even more than that. These drugs will be available for direct purchase online at a website operated by the federal government. We're also announcing that moving forward, all new medications introduced by Pfizer to the American market will be sold at the reduced most favored nation costs. So we'll be paying essentially what other countries are paying, who have been much lower for many, many years. Furthermore, Pfizer will invest $70 billion to reshore domestic manufacturing facilities. In other words, they're going to bring a lot of their facilities to make their drugs and make what they make, their product. They're going to make it in the United States. I appreciate that $70 billion investment and fund research and development right here in America. We're working with other major pharmaceutical companies to secure similar agreements. Everyone understands that the status quo where Americans pay more for drugs, prescription drugs, and they pay more than foreign countries who take advantage of us in many other ways, although not so many anymore. I think we've pretty well got that stopped, right? I think so. We've stopped that, but they took advantage of a lot of other presidents, that I can tell you. But we're making this pay to be very unacceptable, what they've done in the past. That's why my administration has also taken historic action to investigate the unfair and discriminatory trade practices of other countries that extort our pharmaceutical makers to shift costs onto the American consumer. They say, no, give us a price, a very low price, and just charge the American consumer, charge it to the U.S. The United States is done subsidizing the health care of the rest of the world. It's a big thing. I can't tell you how big this is. And I was all set to go on the first term, but then you had the COVID, and we had to focus on that. But I said, I want to get back here, because this is, you're talking about 14, 15, 1,600% reductions in some cases. But by taking this bold step, we're ending the era of global price gouging at the expense of American families, and we're making America healthy again, which is our little theme for the people behind me. And I want to just ask Secretary Kennedy to come up, and we'll start, and we'll go through it with Oz and Klomp and Bourla and McCary, and we'll go through it, and if you have any questions. But this is a really big announcement. This is something that most people said was not doable. And other countries are going along because we told them that if you don't go along, they didn't have to go along, but if they didn't go along, we were going to put extra tariffs on those countries, and we were going to charge them the amount of money that they should be paying for the reduction in costs. So I think we had a pretty good negotiating position. So Bobby, I'd like you to speak about this, and what a great job, and thank you very much.
I thank a couple of people who aren't up here, Theo Merkel, Dr. Heidi Overton, who played key roles in this negotiation, help make this happen. And also Inma Hernandez, who's not up here, but John Brook and Chris Klomp, who were the people who were negotiating, in some cases, I think including last night, 24 hours without any sleep. This would not have happened without President Trump's leadership. I told my son last night, we're all under secrecy about this, but I told my son late last night, I have a 27-year-old son, Connor, who's a very liberal Democrat. And I told him this was happening, and he just paused for a minute and he said, "Thank you, Dad, I'm so proud of you." Because this is something Democrats have wanted for 20 years, Republicans have wanted for 20 years. Everybody said they're going to do it. Nobody has even taken a step towards doing it. And the reason was because it was such a daunting task. And, you know, even all of the negotiators, you see, I also want to thank Howard Lutnick. This would not have happened without him. But even all of the negotiators here and all the people on at HHS and at the White House team, all we could see was all the reasons that this couldn't happen. Everybody had tried. Nobody could make it happen. And it was President Trump alone who, with his doggedness, his persistence, he saw this clearly in a way that none of us other, in its most simplest terms. Why are we spending more on this country than any other country? Why are we spending 75% of the revenues that come to the pharmaceutical industry? We're doing all the research, and everybody else is riding on our slipstream. And President Trump, I would say, harangued and harassed us to make this happen. I was getting calls at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. "Oh, are you asleep? And you got to get MFN done." And at one point, Dr. Oz told me, "I can't take the president's calls anymore." I have a lot of reasons, my wife has a lot of reasons to say to me about different things that happen in my life. Doesn't that give you anxiety? And I say, I don't get anxiety. This gave me anxiety. Oh, thank you, President Trump. It would not have happened without you. This is real leadership. It's a president who has a vision and makes that vision happen. And I can't think of any other president of the United States who could have done this in our history. I'm very grateful to you. This is an extraordinary benefit. The American people, thank you for your vision, President Trump, your bold action, your unwavering commitment to health and well-being of the American people. Never has a president stood up so bravely for the American people with respect to health care. And by the way, I forgot to thank Albert Berlin. Albert and I have had a long history of antipathy and antagonism toward each other. But I have to say his leadership in this took tremendous courage. And he really created a template for corporate responsibility, for putting public health ahead of his individual interests. So I'm very, very grateful to you for that, Albert. Under the leadership of President Trump, the U.S. government is now acting as a tough negotiator on behalf of the American people. Today is about fairness, it's about equality, it's about giving hope to those who are trying to stay healthy, who are managing illness and who are fighting for their lives. We refuse to make the most vulnerable citizens continue to pay an unthinkable price for the world's pharmaceutical breakthroughs, which we pay for. This policy is a shield for the chronically ill who have carried the burden of high drug costs for far too long. It's a signal to every American family that we're finally putting their health and financial security first. And it sets a new standard, one that says we won't write blank checks to the drug industry any longer. No family should ever be forced to choose between filling a prescription and putting food on the table. Americans should not be gouged paying 300 or 400 or 1,000% more than people in other countries for the exact same drug, many times manufactured in the same factory in New Jersey and sold in Great Britain for 1/10 the price that it's being sold for here. This week, and I was with some friends up in Martha's Vineyard, and an old friend, one of my oldest friends, his wife and daughter have a chronic disease. And that chronic disease last year cost $150,000 to treat. And the mother had to choose whether she was going to take that money and spend it on her or her daughter. And she spent it on her daughter. So she had to make that choice. It's a choice that no mother should have to make. We did a roundtable recently on drug prices. One patient spent more than $180,000 on one drug. One cashed in all of her savings and worked 3 jobs to make ends meet. One almost quit her job and moved to Germany to get the drug cheaper. Some looked at getting the drug on unsafe secondary markets because they could not afford it through the legitimate markets. Today, we begin to right that ship. For the mother trying to help her child get better, for a grandmother at the pharmacy counter, and for millions of Americans who want to restore their health. Today is about another promise made by President Trump and another promise kept by President Trump to the American people. And it's only just the beginning. This is all thanks to your unwavering leadership, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There is a fine line between vision and hallucination. People have to follow you for it to be a vision. And President Trump, you made a lot of people following you, an idea that most people thought was not possible, even remotely. And when we have that shared vision, and I'll speak to some of the people who are involved in this process because it was incredible effort that gives me great pride to serve in this administration. And the fact that it did not leak is also an issue of pride for us because these were tough challenges. And Albert Bourla looks very calm up here and cat-like, but he is ferocious when you get him in a negotiating room. This is true for all the pharmaceutical companies that we are negotiating with. And Secretary Kennedy, my son Oliver, who I told about this deal as we was walking over here, is a Republican. And you know what he said? Thank you for making us proud. Because it's not just a Democratic problem, it's a Republican problem. This has not happened before. And it took a crusader like President Trump, with the support of Secretary Kennedy, Secretary Lutnick, I see the Vice President's here as well, just unwavering, dogged pursuit of change. And now I have to admit that I know the President has me on speed dial, and most of the time when he would call me, as Secretary Kennedy alluded to, it was about MFN. And he always had reasons why we needed to go faster and why people were being hurt today because we're allowing the kinds of pricing that had been tolerated for so many decades in America. The time of the day didn't matter, the day of the week didn't matter, and that's how the president was functioning. This was such an important part of what he saw as his legacy, which is why it brings such pride to all of us up here and many others to deliver it. And the laser focus that the president had on this, which he shared with me the day that I was nominated, that he nominated me for this position and has reminded me frequently since, made it a top priority for us as well at CMS. Now, to do this, you have to have tactics, not just vision, but tactics. And the first tactic the president shared was to introduce me to Albert Bourla. He took us to dinner with Secretary Kennedy, and he argued, and he's a great deal maker, as you know, that if you're going to make a deal of this scope, of this nature, you need trust. So the president lit the kindling, he got the embers going, but he needed us to nurture that beginning of a fire so they would blaze into what today we can announce as the grand deal, one of the greatest ever, certainly in the space of pharmaceuticals. I gained to respect Albert, and I'll tell you why in particular. It was because he recognized the dangerous problems facing so many Americans, that they had to choose between taking medications prescribed by their doctor that could be life-saving or shopping at the grocery store, paying for their kids a fundamentally important need that would be squeezed out because they couldn't compromise on drugs, or often worse, they compromise on the drugs. 1/3 of all prescriptions are not filled in the pharmacy because of this. We talked through the winter. We talked through the spring. We talked through the summer. And we got nowhere. We stalled. The industry is powerful. They're important. They have smart people. There's no reason for them to give the numbers that the president is articulating today. And you see these numbers on the charts around us. These are massive wins for the American people. But the president in July demanded, after the executive order, that manufacturers make a firm commitment and to lower prices or else. And it sent shockwaves through the industry. It got the ball rolling again. Our talks with Albert heated up. But it wasn't until last week, if you want an inside story, it wasn't until last week that we made a major breakthrough. And our hardworking team embarked on a remarkable story that I think books will be written about, 24/7, nonstop, with industry, with Albert, with his great team at Pfizer. And with this partnership, we began to deal with the fundamental challenges we have, which is protecting medical advances for the future while at the same time securing the prices Americans want today. We're going to continue to stimulate and strengthen innovation. That's what a great country does, and we are a great country with a great leader. We're going to protect the U.S. hegemony in R&D. We dominate the planet in discovering cures for illnesses. All those orphan ailments, all those remarkable advances, they come from research labs here with companies like Pfizer and other great ones in the pharmaceutical space. We're going to lead in the life sciences. We're going to lead in ideas. And we're going to make sure that we do all that while we're being fair to the American people, especially our most vulnerable. We're going to finally deliver on the fair drug prices that President Trump has been speaking about for 2 terms. We're going to celebrate this historic day, I predict, this historic day in the medical field for generations to come. The heroic negotiators that I do feel compelled to mention, and Secretary Kennedy kindly also mentioned their names. Some of them can't be in here because they're busy negotiating future deals. Inma Hernandez-Delso, John Brooks, who's a deputy administrator of mine, Theo Merkel, who is in the back and tall and hard to miss with DPC, and Corey Enslin with the same group did a spectacular job, and Don Dempsey at OMB. Just wonderful human beings worked tirelessly to get this done. We were able to secure this first MFN deal, and the president touched on this, but we have much more to come. You'll be hearing breaking news from the president for the rest of the fall. And Mr. President, these brilliant minds are here because of you. Now, I don't want to just pay homage to this. I want to actually speak this a little bit. The passion to protect the American people brings top-tier Americans into the government. We've created a powerful administration with the president's leadership, an administration of winners. People get things done. They see the generational opportunity to fix the biggest problems our nation faces. And the person who led this negotiation, Chris Klump, embodies this seal. Now, Chris Klump came to visit Secretary Kennedy and I the very first day we were looking for staff to try to bring in the government. And neither of us really had an idea of how challenging this might be. And he came to the interview, and we knew that he had built a business that was worth several $100 million. And the secretary, very poker-faced as he tends to be, looked at him and said, "Are you willing to give it all up and move your family to Washington?" A young family, 4 young children, beautiful wife. "Are you willing to come across the country and serve our nation, serve this president to ensure vital programs like Medicare, which he runs, will keep our seniors healthy for years to come?" He gave it all up, like so many have in this administration, passionate to follow the president's lead and serve under Secretary Kennedy. And for those of you at home who are watching, and I hope there are quite a few, I think this shows just how cool a place it is to work, is in this government. And I take great pride in handing the ball to Chris. Chris, tell the American people what they have won thanks to your passionate ability to deliver on President Trump's promise.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. President. You have enabled something that as recently as last night, nearly everyone has said was impossible. And Secretary Kennedy and Administrator Oz, thank you for having trust in us as a negotiating team to drive this forward on behalf of the American people. It is an absolute honor and privilege. And Mr. Borla, to you and to the team at Pfizer, you have taken a step that I think few appreciate, requires a level of courage to change something that for decades administrations have tried. And there was no incentive rationally for you to do, and yet you've done it because you recognize the opportunity to align your economic interest with the social interest of the American people, and we are grateful. Today is historic, as has been discussed. This is a major win in the battle for affordable health care and affordable drugs. As the president said, on average, we pay nearly 3 times what the rest of the wealthy world pays for branded pharmaceuticals. And yet we drive more than 50% of global R&D, 50% of revenues, nearly 70% of profits. It's unjust, it's morally unjust. And when this happens, we stifle innovation and we limit access for the most vulnerable people across the planet and in America who need these medications. And so the president directed us to make deals. That's what he does, and it's what we do. And all great deals, and this is a great deal, are rooted in principles. And this deal was rooted in the principle of fairness. Now, the president could have directed us to go to the poorest country on the planet and find the cheapest price for every single drug and bring that back to the United States and use the might of the government to insist that that's the price we pay. And that might have worked, actually, for just a little bit. But very quickly, it would have utterly destroyed innovation in pharmaceuticals. It would have destroyed American primacy in building life-saving medications. There are nearly 20,000 known diseases on the planet. We have treatments or cures for far fewer than 10% of them. So that would have been a bad strategy, and it would have limited access to those who need those medications the most. But he didn't call for that. He didn't call for 50% lower than the lowest price on the planet. What he called for was fairness. And that's a powerful principle, because we all grow up wanting to be on the right side of fair. And it allowed us to do what has not been done before, which is to call on manufacturers and ask them to be fair, and allows us to go to countries and ask them to pay their fair share in the battle against global disease. And that is the unlock for this great deal. Now, it's my privilege to talk just for a few minutes about the details of the deal. First, let's start with the definition of MFN. What do we mean by that? This is not made-up list prices that have often been quoted in prior administrations, stuffed with fees and rebates. We're talking about we start at net prices, after fees, after rebates, the prices people actually pay here, the prices people actually pay in other wealthy countries. We then index to a basket of countries, wealthy countries, across the world. And we go drug by drug, and we look for the lowest price. And that becomes the starting point for what an MFN price is in the United States. And then we've built this principles of fairness on 5 key pillars, as we've talked about. Number 1, as has been discussed, direct access for patients at TrumpRx, which is a site soon to be launched, available often at full MFN and always at lower prices than currently available. This is bypassing middlemen. It increases transparency. In many instances, prices are 80% lower than they are today. No more Canadian detours to purchase drugs more inexpensively at our neighbor. You do it from home, you do it a click. This is American ingenuity outsmarting the system. Number 2, the president was very clear to us and directed us to ensure that we secured the lowest prices for the most vulnerable Americans, those who are served by Medicaid. So we focused there first. So Pfizer will be putting virtually all of its portfolio of drugs at MFN prices available to Medicaid in the near future. This safeguards the program. This ensures that this program lives as a lifeline without undue burden on the taxpayer for those who need it most, for our vulnerable Americans whom we are charged morally to care for. The third principle is about future-proofing fairness. This is the idea that Pfizer has committed, as are other manufacturers, that they will not launch a new drug for commercial, Medicare, Medicaid, or cash pay markets at a price that is higher than the other wealthy world. Now, they are free to price their drugs wherever they want. These are not price caps. These are not price controls. They can price however they'd like. We're simply asking them, and they are committing not to undercut us in other countries. This is an essential principle. This allows us to retrain other countries to appropriately value innovation for their citizens, to appropriately understand what fair share means, to contribute global R&D. This allows us not to compromise access for those who need it most. And this is a powerful commitment. The fourth principle is around shared savings. As our commerce colleagues and as our US trade representative colleagues succeed in encouraging other countries to pay more for existing medications, a portion of that will go to fund additional R&D. And a portion of that will repatriate back to the United States to offset prices, lower prices further for Americans on those existing drugs. And the fifth principle, as discussed, with hats off to Secretary Lutnick and Ambassador Jameson Greer from US Trade, is about Pfizer committing to onshore 100% of the value of all imports that it currently imports to the United States, thus ensuring that we seal our great American resurgence. If you're watching this right now and you have been looking for evidence that this is a president who knows and cares about you, who is fighting for you, who is fighting for every American, this is Exhibit A. This is not an empty promise. It's not platitudes. It's not lacking a plan. These are hard contracts with teeth, lowering prices now that we will all feel. These are the most significant, historical, substantive, mathematically quantified price reductions in the history of our country and modern-day pharmaceuticals. I cannot thank you enough for your leadership in enabling this to happen. It is an absolute pleasure. The president has showed us that the impossible can be achieved, and that is what's happened today. God bless America. With that in mind, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer.
Mr. President, what an honor to be here today in this office to announce a landmark agreement. I think it's an historic day.
Is this the coolest office? He has a beautiful office. but the Oval is the coolest, right? What do you think?
I think by far. And I have seen other presidents' offices. There's nothing like that.
Yeah, it's good office.
Yeah. So it's an historic day because I think today we are turning the tide and we are reversing an unfair situation. For years, other rich nations refused to pay the fair share for the medical innovation. And as a result, Americans had to assume disproportional cost on their shoulders. This situation, we all knew, is not sustainable. This situation is a situation that many wanted to change, but no one could. This is changing today with this agreement. In July, the president sent to me and other heads of pharmaceutical companies a letter. And over there, he articulated 4 specific requests. These requests, it was obvious to us, were designed to lower drug cost in the America in different ways, each one of them. And altogether, holistically, to have synergistic effect in the impact that that will have in the US healthcare cost and patients. With this deal that we signed today, we satisfied all 4 of President's requests, all 4. The big winner of this deal clearly will be the American patient. There is no doubt about it. They are the ones that will see significant impact in their ability to buy medicines. But I would argue that it is not the only winner. I think who else is a winner here? It is American innovation and American economy. In our industry, we had 2 major overhangs that have substantially reduced our valuations and create concerns for us in our ability to invest. We are addressing both of them right now, and I will speak about them. The first one was the uncertainty of tariffs. Because President is absolutely right. Tariffs is the most powerful tool to motivate behaviors, Mr. President, and clearly motivated ours, right? So, by this agreement that we did, we commit to onshore the production of our medicines that are consumed in the US and are made outside the US. And for that, we are ready to unleash our investment portfolio in this country. And the President graciously gave us a 3-year grace period that we will not be subject to the 232 tariffs, as long as, of course, we move the products here. That's one. The second overhang in our industry was this uncertainty. What will happen with the framework of pricing in the country? Because this uncertainty, it was what was holding people from investing in the pharmaceutical industry, which resulted in significant reduction of our multiples. Actually, our multiples are at historical low. Well, now we have clarity about what is the framework for the US pricing. Read the letter of President Trump, read the 4 points, and this is the framework. And we will abide to that, and going forward, this is how things will be priced in the US and abroad. We are ready to invest, as the President also mentioned, $70 billion in the next few years from Pfizer in manufacturing and research in America alone. I really think this is an historical moment because also I can put that behind us and focus on the things that I want to spend my time, cancer treatments, to bring better obesity medicines, to bring better vaccines, to bring things that people value. And thank you for allowing us to do that. I want to thank Secretary Kennedy. I want to thank Secretary Latnik. Your leadership helped us to pull that together. You are the mastermind of everything, and without the brilliant way that you designed the whole thing, we wouldn't be able to make it happen. But you were even more brilliant because you had someone in your team that he was the driving force behind everything. And I don't have words to thank you for your integrity. And it is what you have said. We created trust from day one. And that was the most important thing that allowed us to be able to pull